T Network. Let's go. So, of course, it's a secondary channel, primarily sports related. Want to make it a bit over the DL. I'll try to go over the NFL divisional round when we get there. Of course, we have NBA news, when probably the biggest trade in NBA history in recent memory. Of course, we have a current multi All Star scoring champion. Of course, one of the biggest stars to come out of Houston Rockets in recent history, over one of the biggest robbery trades of all time for Oklahoma City Thunder. Of course, two guard James Harden. Of course, he's now a Brooklyn Net over a four-way trade involving the Indiana Pacers, the Cleveland Cavaliers, and freaking, if I could just look it up right now, the Houston Rockets. It's just ridiculous, and I want to like put everything up over perspective, because it's like, oh my God, power. We have another big power in the NBA. James Harden, three of the biggest scorers with defensively improved James Harden that can move over at the 1 to 3 spot. The guy is obviously one of the best scoring players of all time. Still able to move over with some of the best, and when the best step back shots in recent history. But he's coming over his first 8 games of the season in low statistics, in my opinion, and it's probably been like this for a long, long time, bro. Like it's bad. Like Vince Russo dealing with Spike TV bad. Like, he's scored 24 points, open with 10 assists, 44 from the field, 34 from behind the arc. That's average, with the efficiency being at least 88%. But his field goals efficiency is barely racking over at least a sum of 53. And sure, Harden's been through worse statistically wise, postseason wise, and I don't know how he's going to feature over three prolific scorers that can move over the ball. So of course, some people got to sacrifice, and how they're gonna bring the ground game, and how they're going to cruise the floor, even though Harden has proved to improve over the defensive scale, but in a perimeter defensive scale where it looks like he can stop a guy over off ball, and not move that much over his own, and just get back and moving the ball, and just there's just a limit over what you can do with guys that are only primarily over scoring. That's just my opinion on the matter. Harden to the Nets costed over Oladipo, Tarion Prince, and Jaren Jackson going to the Cavs, and that at least does some help over for the Cleveland Cavaliers to at least rotate over depth from Larry Nance, Drummond, and you get more extensive youth with another good five in Jaren Jackson Jr. So I thought that was a really good thing for the Cavs, so they can get better youth. And of course, Karis LeVert goes to move over his talents because he's shown to be one of the most improved scoring options for the Brooklyn Nets. Now, what in the hell do they have on the Nets team that's actually going to push them over the top? That's actually my opinion. My biggest concern. What's the depth? What's going to help with the Nets? It's great that you have a 31-year-old James Harden now. That's obviously cruising nearly out of his prime. You don't know how long he's going to keep with this this inconsistent efficiency over his history over the postseason. And he's had times 0 for 27, been shut off over low percentages. His game against the Spurs in the Western Conference semifinals, where he shot, I think, a staggering 26%, got blocked against Manu Ginobili. Just it just underachieving performances, and over most of what's been proclaimed over most of the reports, it's already not even good enough to even hit the Eastern Conference Final, in my opinion. I mean, it's great that they still have outside shooters and average defenders over Joe Harris, Jeff Green now, Nicholas Claxton. That's an average forward, but still young. You still have what, Tyler Johnson, and out of his prime, Drummond that can still pick up over the board, average starter, but obviously not as good as how he was like nearly 10 years ago. Timothy LaRue, Cabarrou, and of course Reggie Perry, and Landry Shamet that used to be a Clipper. Like sea level depth for what, top three best scorers, like two of the best scoring champions and one of the best handles in the NBA. That's an average score. And over most of what I'm seeing, it's gonna be like what, a fourth or third seed, like an average 40 wins. I don't. It's just not good enough in my opinion. And over most of the proclaiming reports over why Harden left the Houston Rockets. Why? I'm just like, I'm trying to like understand over most of the underperformances that the Nets have had over the last, I mean the Rockets had over the last coming years, over, the flux of talent like Trevor Ariza, Nene, they lost Clint Capella, the downward spiral over with Aaron Gordon, Dwight Howard when he was getting prolifically signed, when having the best 3-point scoring teams, best over in the fast break, best in scoring. Like there was times when the Rockets were at least the third biggest threat for a contender for the NBA Finals, if it wasn't for, like, of course the Cavs or the Warriors super teams or the Celtics getting good or the Sixers finally improving to be threats for the finals or the Jazz finally showing up when they had Donovan Mitchell. And now we have the Nets, that's like a necessary formatting for scoring with no shallowness. Now, I don't say that Harden sucks defensively like back in the day when that was a cliche, like one of the best all around scorers, but the guy can't defend. The guy has obviously improved in stopping the shooter, better at prolifically hustling over for the ball. He can steal. Harden is not as slumped as what he was like, what, 7 years ago. So I'm taking that out of the board right now. The guy has obviously been a dual threat, but it's just not that good over trying to stop over the drive. The guy's not going to be there all the time trying to stop a guy over in the paint. Doesn't seem to hustle all the time over his defensive assignments. And you just got average dudes what guys you actually know on this team other than Joe Harris and Tyler Johnson and a couple of second round bench warmers. Like, I like Durant. He's gonna push over a lot more heads come deadline before, like, some of these guys like starting losing 3 straight, and then we're gonna get a complaint and could say that this is probably the worst trade in Nets history. But it's only a matter of time. We still have a lot more basketball to see. What are we like under like 25 games so far in the season? So I'd say just probably watch a couple Nets games involving Harden to see how he gels over with the Nets. It's obviously one of the biggest trades to happen. We don't know how the rest of the team is going to gel over with 3 superstars on the Nets, and probably it's most talk about what the Knicks are doing. Even though the Knicks are going for their own improving ways, they are having a good starting 16 games than they have been over the last 4 seasons. So either way, it's a win-win, I guess, for the Nets. Victor Oladipo gets to benefit because he gets to cruise over another team where he doesn't have to be injury prone. Jaren Jackson and Karis LeVert get to see what their true potential leads over for an extensive chance over a contract with a smaller market team that can be utilized their talent because these guys are younger than the guys they got traded for. So, yeah, everybody technically gets the benefit. I mean, until the latter comes, because, Harden's going to be for a potential contender, while the rest of the young guys and, of course, the future picks that I think the Rockets received the 2022nd, the 2024th, and the 20. We better not be getting that King garbage, because I remember that Billy King garbage that happened when we were getting those Celtics players, and this is only for one over a four-way trade. So I don't think there's not much we can suspend from what the Nets are trying to do here. But that's it coming from DST Network. I'll try to make sure that I'm more discreet over my detailing over most of the sports content I'm able to do, because of course this DST show that's on primarily pro wrestling and anything else entertainment. But if I want to talk about my sports stuff, I need to do it in the second channel. I don't know if I'm gonna move the sports content that I talk about there to here, but want to try something new for once. But that's all I got here. Tell me how you think about James Harden heading to the Brooklyn Nets. Obviously, I'm a bit excited because we don't have that much stuff to talk about over for the Knicks, and of course we're getting the most headlining that we're having in probably years since 2012, 2013, when we were getting the former big three of the Boston Celtics, and now we're getting three high-scoring all-star players trying to make this team into a contender. I don't know if it's actually going to sit well for a championship contender, but you tell me. I obviously don't think this is good enough to even hit up, rack up a game 7 for a second round appearance. But that's just my opinion. Tell me how you feel.